Hey guys, Full Throttle here, and this is a 2021 Aprilia Tuono V4 factory. Today, we just crossed over 1,000 kilometers, 1,077 to be exact. That means we are due for our first oil change. So I'll be using the Motul 7100 4-stroke 10W50 oil and the K&N KN-138 oil filter. If you like a different one, let me know in the comments below what you prefer for your oil and the oil filter. So to get started, we should probably remove this belly panel here at the bottom of the bike. The goal should be to remove as few screws as possible while removing as many panels as possible at the same time. So if you use a 4mm Allen key to remove this bolt, the one on the other side as well, so that's two. Then you go down here, there's one here, and then at the front, there are two here. If you remove those five, I think the whole belly panel assembly should be able to come off. Alright, so here's our removed belly panel. That would be the front of the bike, right side and left side. So again, you remove the screw here, that's the front, and then on this side, there's one here, and then on the other side, there's one here. And the bottom, this attaches to the engine casing as well. So those 5 screws will allow you to remove this entire belly panel, and that gives you access here to the oil filter and the drain plug. One more thing is that you can see this little clip here. That's where one or two of the hoses might be stowed. That way they don't flop around. So make sure you remove them before you pull this panel off. You don't want to snag that. So I had already done this before, but this is probably the time when you want to do it. I have the bike on the rear stand and the front stand, a little bit off the ground. That way it gives you some clearance. So when you put your oil drain pan here, it gives you a little bit space, a little bit of freedom for you to get in there with your tools, just a little bit easier access. So since oil likes to flow better when it's a little bit hot, we want to turn the bike on just for a little bit to warm it up, and that way it'll flow out easily, and it'll be a faster process for you. I'm not gonna show the heating up process, but you know what to do. Now that the engine is a little bit warm, what you want to do is start by removing the oil drain plug that is right here by using a 10mm hex. And then once you remove that, the oil will start draining out. And a little bit later, you'll probably want to get the filter out as well. So this is my old Yamaha filter remover, but it's a little small. So I ended up ordering this whatever one from Amazon. That's the 12-inch one. So it should be able to grip my filter. And the one I put on, the K&N one, is going to have a nut welded onto it. So I won't need that ever again. There's the drain plug out, and there's your first dirty oil coming out. While most of that oil drains, we can take a look at the drain plug. It's really hard for me to focus on this stupid camera, but you'll notice that there's a magnet, and the oil plug has been collecting some metal flakes. So that's nice. The bike already comes with a magnetic drain plug. So what you want to do is just to wipe it off. That way you can see how much came off, and that way you don't introduce it back into the oil for the next time. Next, we want to get this filter out of here using this filter tool. It's going to be a little difficult because they tightened the crap out of this at the factory, but turns out it's not too bad. The concern is going to be that it's going to drain on top of all of these hoses that I don't like, having dirty. So just get them, put them on the side, make sure you don't burn yourself like I almost just did. And then you should be good to go. Continue removing. See, that's what I mean. The rubber hose, just wipe it. It's all, I guess, to me it's a big deal, but to most people it's probably not a big deal. Now we want to spend some time and let this guy drain all the way. Once we remove the filter, it'll allow air in, and it should drain a little bit faster. While we're talking about air, we can also open the fill port That will allow some more air in, and that should speed up the process a little bit. Not that there's a lot of oil left now anyways. While we have some time, let's discuss why I chose the 7100 oil rather than 300V or 5100 oil. I'm a Motul guy, so first of all, that's why I have all these different oils here. The 300V is a racing oil. It's a full synthetic racing oil, so I use that in my track bike slash race bike over there. It's meant to be like the ultimate oil. The 7100 is also full synthetic, but it's more geared towards like street use, right? So on the street, you're not constantly going to the red line. You're not pushing it as much as you would be on a racetrack. And then there's the 5100. So that one is a semi-synthetic, and I used to use that before, and it's probably totally fine for the street. But there's something that I'm gonna do here that I probably would not recommend most of you to do. This bike takes 4.1 liter of oil. So that means this 4-liter jug is not going to be enough, right? So you can buy 2 of those and use the second one and only use like 100 milliliter. But for perspective, 100 milliliter is like basically nothing, right? It's such a small amount. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cheat. I wouldn't recommend you to do it, but I'm going to cheat and only put the 4 liters. So that means I want to make sure it's not the 5100, because whatever the little advantage the 7100 gives me, I want it, right? It's a little bit more money, but that's okay. And the 300V is just for track use to me. Now that most of the oil is out, we can start by reassembling everything by putting the filter back on and the drain plug back on. This is a new filter, by the way. So even though the Aprilia drain plug is already a magnetic one, I ended up buying another one that is a slightly stronger magnet, just because it's not that expensive, and why not, right? The filter, as I mentioned earlier, is the KN-138. There's a 138C, which comes in like a chrome color. That's what the C means. I don't really care. We're not going to see it, so I just got the black one. That's the one that's usually in stock. And the benefit is that this filter comes with a nut welded on that takes a 17 millimeter socket. And also the drain plug, instead of using that 10 millimeter hex, now it takes a 12 millimeter socket. Now it's time to put the oil filter on. Before we do that, we want to make sure we clean the mating surface there. That way there's no debris or anything like that. And then we want to take our new filter, and you see this O-ring here. We want to put some old or new oil on it, just like, with your finger. That way it helps with the seal. And we also want to prime the filter because it's dry right now. We want to put some oil in there. That way it's easier for it to fill. You don't have to do that. I'm probably not going to do that because the nut makes it so that it's not really able to stand up straight, but you can do that and then put the filter on. The filter's on. You always want to only install this using hand tightness. You don't want to use any tools unless you're using a torque wrench with the appropriate torque selected. You don't want to over torque it. And now it's time for the drain bolt. Same idea. Clean the surface here, make sure there's no debris, and this one came with this extra washer, so I'm going to put that on and tighten that as well. And that one, there is a torque spec. I don't have it, so just don't over tighten it because you don't want to strip the threads. The drain plug is on as well. Now we want to make sure we do one last wipe of the filter and the drain plug area. That way when we check for leaks later, we're not fooled by our own leaked oil from right now rather than the one that we put in. So now it's time to get a funnel out and use this hole to fill your 4 liters, and actually 4.1 liters if I'm being honest. And if you don't have an exact way to measure the 4.1, there's also the dipstick here. You undo that, warm the engine up, let the oil heat up, wipe that dipstick, put it back in without screwing it in, and pull it out to see there's a notch. Your oil should be between the minimum and the maximum level, and it's good to go. With my 4 liters, I don't really have to worry. I just empty the entire jug and I should be good to go. So my 4 liters is full. So now I'm gonna start the bike, let the pump do its thing, pump the oil into the oil cooler at the bottom. So technically, now that the oil has had some time to flow and warm up a little bit, this is when you remove the dipstick, wipe it clean, check everything, make sure the levels are good. You go in here, make sure there are no leaks on the drain plug, make sure there are no leaks on the filter area. Now, I suspect you have to go to the dealer, or you need some special tool to get rid of that service wrench. I don't know how to do that. Usually you go in the here somewhere and it lets you reset it. The R3 has it. It lets you reset it. My cars all have that. You can just go in there and reset without anything special. If you know how to do that, leave that in the comments below. I'm just going to roll with the wrench right there and mark down my kilometers. 1077. That's the cc of the motorcycle, so it's easy to remember. And now it's time to put the fairings back on. So same thing we did before. We take this guy, a couple screws up here and here, one at the bottom, one here, and one here. Those are the 4mm hex screws, and once you do that, you are done. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any concerns or questions or comments in general, leave them in the comments below. Subscribe to see more of videos like this in the future.